The Jacksonville Jaguars went 4-13 last season, which was the third worst performance relative to Vegas win totals in the NFL, finishing 4.5 games under their expected 8.5. At QB, they need a bounce-back campaign from Lawrence, who earned a massive contract extension that has him as the fifth highest-paid quarterback in APY after throwing for 8,600 yards with 51 touchdowns and 27 interceptions in years 2 and 3, but struggled with injuries in 2024, missing 6 of the last 7 games and finishing the year on IR. One of the issues Lawrence had to deal with over the last 2 years was drops. He had to deal with 1.7 drops per game, which was fourth most among starting quarterbacks. The Jaguars brought in 2 new pieces for the offensive line that was in the top half of the league in sacks allowed. They brought in center Robert Hainsey and guard Patrick McCarry. And they'll also see 2 new starting faces at wide receiver in Travis Hunter and Diami Brown. On the defensive side of the ball, they're banking on some in-house player development as they return 8 starters to a defense that ranked 26th in defensive grade, 22nd in run defense grade, 25th in pass rush grade, 26th in coverage grade, and 31st in yards allowed per game, and 27th in points allowed per game. They're returning 8 starters to the defense side of the ball after being outside the top 25 in all of those, or the top 20. My first question to y'all is this: how much impact will Travis Hunter be able to make on a team where both sides of the ball need him desperately?
I have the answer, so you go ahead, Jack.
Okay. I mean, I think he'll be able to help. I am interested to see how they deploy him in terms of cornerback, wide receiver.
I have the answer to that question.
Okay. Well, I'm going to finish my thought, then you can give me the answer. So, JP, I'm curious as to how they deploy him and what percentage of snaps are offensive side of the ball and defensive side of the ball, as well as, like, how many snaps can he play in a game total, if that makes sense. Because I feel like in Colorado he's playing, like, almost every snap of the game, and I don't really think that's feasible long term.
He averaged over 90.
Over 90. Yeah, I was going to say 93, so that makes sense. So, yeah, I'm interested to see how that plays out. He's definitely an improvement, but he's one guy, and how much is that really going to help a defense that wasn't so great? And then, I mean, offensively, they already have some weapons, but he can help bolster that group. So,
yeah, Travis Hunter is, thinking from like a college perspective, his major is going to be offense.
Sure.
His minor is going to be defense. He's going to major in offense first. Their hope is in-house. This is coming from Liam Cohen and their GM as well, that later in the season or in his career, he can move to the defensive side of the ball, but Hunter is going to be an every snap wide receiver this season.
Okay.
He's not going to be a guy that necessarily contributes on the defensive end. More than likely, he won't get a ton of snaps over there. There's been quotes and a lot of, this is a huge discussion because we haven't really seen this many times in football history. Travis Kelce said that they're going to attack Travis Hunter by essentially, if he were to play defense, they would send a receiver to his side of the field and have that receiver only run go routes.
I saw that.
And basically try to tire him out.
Yeah.
But for me, I think I think that's impossible because I think Travis Hunter is just one of those athletes that is just above everyone else, where that is something that it doesn't affect him. A la LeBron James, Michael Jordan, flu game, it doesn't matter. Like, Jordan's gonna cook you. I ate the whole pizza, as Jordan said in The Last Dance. Travis Hunter, I don't think is going to get tired out even if he does play defense. He really didn't in college as well. I think the long season is the reason that we're going to send him at receiver first. And I would do that too because receiver right now is valued as the third most valuable position in the NFL from a money perspective. And if I'm Travis, and even if I'm the organization, I'm putting him in that role because for Travis's perspective, I can make the most money playing receiver full-time. For the organization's perspective, that's the third most valuable position to us. So receiver is probably what he's going to play and what I think he's going to be really known as. But I do hope we get to see him on the defensive side of the ball because really some of his best highlights were defensive highlights at Colorado. But he's going to be an every down receiver for the Jacksonville Jaguars this season. So as far as impact, I think he has the potential to impact them just as much as Brian Thomas did. you at the receiver position, there are guys that can play receiver, and then there are guys that can play receiver. Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. You think of guys like that. Like, there are freak athletes that are just bigger, faster, stronger, can jump further, higher, can just make incredible catches, shake people better than you would think they're capable of. You would think of Travis Kelce. He gets open off the ball, even though he's really not the fastest guy.
Yeah.
Jamar Chase is a smaller receiver, but he's the best receiver in football. I think Travis Hunter has that capability. I think he can make that impact for the Jaguars immediately. And now you pair him with Brian Thomas. Like, I think that's going to be a very fun duo to watch. Jaguar games are going to be on the TV because Travis Hunter is playing.
Yeah.
He is must-see television. And I think it's going to be a really interesting season for him. But I don't think he makes the impact defensively that people would hope. I'll be curious if he can use him both sides of Madden, if he is impactful on Madden. But
yeah, what about I've seen some people. I was just taking notes on this. This is a quote from that's Shannon Sharp, I guess.
It is Shannon Sharp
talking about like who Travis Hunter will have to see potentially if he were to play just one or both sides of the ball, and it's a pretty tough lineup. But it kind of comes down to my second question, my unplanned question is: would he be? He won't be wide receiver one. Do you think he will be?
I think he has the potential to be, but he's going to be.
He's not going to start the season.
Slot guy.
Yeah.
Brian Thomas would more than likely play on the outside, but I do think there's interchange on that. Like, I think it would be a lot of left and right kind of thing, and hunting one-on-one matchups and making sure, like, because if you put two on one side, you can put a safety over the top, and now it's 3-on-2.
Yeah.
That's harder to attack than you put 2-on-1 on one side and it's 1-on-1 on the other. I think they'll use him in that perspective. I think he has the chance to be the number one receiver in terms of yardage this season. He's that athletic. And Brian Thomas, I think, would be the first guy people would try to take away with the way he played last season.
Sure.
And the way him and Trevor really were kind of a duo throughout that season. And even Mac Jones towards the end of the season, he still played very well. I don't think he would be – he's not wide receiver one. He's wide receiver
I don't
two.
think so.
But he's Travis Hunter. Like, he's going to have the chance to be wide receiver one at some point, and I think he more than likely would.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. That's all I want to say. The reel that Shannon Sharp was saying was like, if Travis Hunter plays both sides of the ball, here's who he has to guard on defense, and he lists all the wide receivers he's got to guard, and it's like 12 really good wide receivers, and it's like, here's who'd be guarding him, and it's 12 really good cornerbacks. But the issue is you don't think he'll be playing defense very much, and then I don't think he'd be wide receiver one, so he wouldn't be seeing the good cornerbacks, the better cornerback on the team anyway.
It's a terribly stupid point from Shannon Sharp because you're in the NFL, you're just going up against the best in the world. So, like, almost every week you're lining up against someone who's a stud.
Jamar Chase is facing the same matchup.
Yeah, go win it. So, I mean, I get he's a rookie, but, like, that's what everyone has to go do.
Jalen Ramsey is guarding the best guy every week. Like, that's
go get it done. No excuses
for that.
And
Travis Hunter is good enough for that. And Travis Hunter was selected higher than Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson and Jalen Ramsey and all of these guys. So, while he hasn't played a snap in the league, I don't think that's a fair enough take because, like Jack said, you're in the NFL. Any given Sunday, all of these guys are talented. And you're facing the best guy every single week.
Cool.
But you're right, it doubly doesn't matter because they'll probably be on Brian Thomas most of the time in
And
terms
then
of cornerback one.
I have another question about defense. Are we?
Sure.
Do we want to talk about Trevor Lawrence at all on offense?
Well, I mean, if we're
Yeah, I do.
Let's do that. Let's finish the offense.
Pull up his graphic. Trevor is going into his 5th year. He's already signed the extension, so he's locked up with Jacksonville for the long term. But there's going to be tons of questions this year. This is now his 3rd head coach. Liam Cohen comes in from Tampa Bay. He was the offensive coordinator in Tampa Bay. And so there's hopes that with Liam Cohen and Trevor Lawrence and now the weapons and, Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter, that this is a offense that can be kind of the leader of this team because, like Sanders was saying, the defense returns a lot of starters from a defense that wasn't very good last year. So Trevor and the offense has to be the engine of this team. Trevor, poor first year. The blaming was on Urban Meyer and the lack of development. But even for him, though, 12-17 just like wasn't good. He was not great. But he comes back the next year with Doug Peterson, and he was really, really good in the latter half of the year. They were 4-7 at one point. They beat Baltimore in a big game, and they go on a run, make the postseason, and then win a playoff game over a quarterback that hasn't won a playoff game in Justin Herbert, and complete one of the best comebacks in NFL playoff history. And Trevor was great, 25-8, 95 passer rating, 240 yards a game. They were a great offense with, at the time, not necessarily like weapons that people would view really high. Christian Kirk was on that team, but you had guys like Zay Jones, and you had Evan Ingram, and like those aren't viewed the same that Brian Thomas and Travis Hunter are. 2023, they ran it back. He was 8-8. He got hurt in the Monday night football game against the Bengals and missed that game. They ended up losing that game, and that really was kind of the difference in the season. C.J. Beathard had to play a game the following week, and they missed the playoffs barely by a game. Trevor was good again. He was 21-14, but it was a year kind of riddled with injuries, and then 250 passing yards per game. Then he had last season, not good, 2-8, bad passer rating, not touchdowns were way down for the games he played, and passing yards per game were also way down. The story kind of last year for the Jags was just losing close games. They lose a heartbreaker to Miami. They lost where they got walked off touchdown on. They lost a heartbreaker in Houston. It was really a season of just, we couldn't kind of win that big game when we needed to, and we couldn't get across the line at the end of games. And then he got hurt. He hurt his shoulder around week 9. Played another game, and then Mac Jones started the rest of the season, and the season was wraps from there. So Trevor is coming into a 5th year. He's got to answer the bell, but I think he's got the weapons, and Liam Cohen, with what he did with Baker Mayfield, I think this is an offense that's going to be good this year, and it's an offense that's going to have to be good this year because of the defense, Sanders.
Yeah.
If you want to lead, there's your
my
lead
bad,
into
my bad.
your defensive.
I don't know that I have it.
I don't have
I think it's a
graphic.
graphic. He's just saying you were talking about the
my
defense.
bad.
It's your turn.
Oh, yes. Yeah, no, the defense was not great last year. I was talking about it in the intro, being in the bottom half of the league in so many categories and not really taking huge steps to fix it, and that's kind of what happens when do they trade their second-round pick for...
They traded their first next year, and then they traded their second this year.
So that was a missed opportunity to try and bring in some depth, but...
They got Travis Hunter. It may pay off. Who cares?
Yeah, this is
it
true.
It could go back to the Texans in that case of, they spent big capital, but we got Will Anderson Jr.
Yeah, but bringing in 2 new starters on defense, I do not see that. I don't see... Now, they do have talent, and I do... Yes, thank you. I do have another question for y'all. So they've got a very good, probably top 10, top 12 edge rusher in Josh Hines-Allen. But on the other side is not Jalen Walker, but Trayvon Walker. So my question is, can Trayvon Walker become the complementary piece to Josh Hines-Allen? Because while he was 21st in the league with 10 sacks, he was 49th in pass rush win percentage. That means that he was not winning often, but when he was getting the quarterback to the ground. That's not ideal, as it often means that you're getting lucky and kind of stumbling into sacks, or just you're there to clean up sacks. And so my question is, can Walker take the next step to help out Hines-Allen, who's top 15?
I mean, I think he's talented enough to take another step. I'd also just be 10 sacks. I know he's 49th in pass rush win rate, but as my second edge, I'm not really that mad at that still.
Yeah.
I'm perfectly fine with that production. Would I like him to get better because of where I drafted him? Obviously.
That's
he went
kind of
first overall.
Yeah.
But I think he's...
First, yeah, sorry.
He went first, yeah.
And then Hutchinson went second.
Mm-hmm. So, I get that aspect of it where he's not lived up to that, but he's becoming a fine player in the league, and I don't really think it's where the defensive issues lie, is in the pass rush.
Yeah.
I would love for him to get better. I'm sure Jacksonville would love for him to get better and kind of validate picking him first overall.
Yeah, that's the main issue, is because he was this uber talented or uber athletic freak with not a lot of production at Georgia. They were kind of risking a lot by taking him over Hutchinson. And before Hutchinson's injury, he was on pace for over 20 sacks, like 24, I believe. Something absurd. It was
Hutchinson had a much better NFL career
he
so
has had
far
a much better
than
NFL
Trayvon
career.
Walker has.
And so it's kind of making the Jags look a little silly after, at least in an isolated those two picks.
Sure.
It doesn't look like a great decision by them.
Which it's a whole new group in there, right? Isn't the GM gone too, or is the GM still the same from that draft?
Jacksonville, it's
Yeah.
a new GM.
Yeah,
and
so
a
new
head
GM,
coach.
new head
Yeah.
coach. So obviously, like, they still want to be good, but at least they probably don't feel quite the same pressure because he's not necessarily their guy. They can kind of, rinse their hands clean of him if they need to. But, I mean, he's been productive, so.
Yeah.
I thought he played really well last year, and I'm a guy who watches every single game every single Sunday on Sunday.
He pulls up the all 22 on the Monday after.
Sure. I was more so in that from the college perspective, but I watched Trayvon Walker a good amount last season. I watched a lot of Jags game because I'm a Tiger. I like Trevor, so the Jags were a team that were on the TV a ton. I thought he played really well. I get the pushback on the stat. Like, that stat doesn't look good, but I think, like Jack said, 10 sacks is a good production. And you'd hope that he can continue to produce on that. But I think a big part of it is he wasn't the one who decided to be drafted number 1 overall.
That's fair.
The previous GM was, and the previous head coach was at the time, and Doug Peterson. So it's not, with this GM and this head coach, that's not a pressure he should feel. Although unfortunately that's the pressure that's put on number 1 overall picks, and will always be on them. So he produced well last season. I think he maybe has another step in him, but I don't think him and Josh Allen are the issue. I think it's more so in the secondary. The secondary is not great, and then they lose guys like Andre Sisco and Ronald Darby, and they're gonna have questions there. They're gonna. Thankfully for them, they're going to face not necessarily great passing attacks. They'll face Houston twice, but outside of that, the Colts aren't necessarily going to be that. And while Cam Ward, which we'll get into, is an excellent passer, receiver is a big question there, so it's not like they're going to face a ton of tough ones there. In terms of like a win and loss perspective for us, we all have them about in the same spot. I had them going 9-8. Jack has them going 9-8. And then our fan and Sanders have them going 8-9.
Wow.
More specifically, Sanders has them losing the first 5 weeks of the season before proceeding to go 8-4 the rest of the way. So Sanders, what's up with you having them lose the first 5 games of the season?
I think 4 of those 5 are generally like a consensus tough matchups. You have on the road at Cincinnati. You've got Houston at home, at San Francisco, Kansas City at home. That's weeks 2 through 5, and then week 1 is that's a me pick.
Yeah, you're a Panthers fan, so that's
I
a
have
fandom
Carolina
bias.
being good this year, or at least better than they were last year. So I've got them winning. So that's kind of where that comes from. Is I think, okay, I take it back. We do not all have them losing those 4 games. Y'all each have them losing 1, or winning 1. Sorry, in weeks 2 through 5. But our Jaguars fan is on board with me on as far as them losing those weeks 2 through 5. But yeah, that's a Carolina pick, I guess.
Sure.
All right. Yeah, so 9-8, 8-9, 9-8. It'll be a season for them. They're not going to be in prime time as much. They'll play in London only once this season instead of twice. They don't get the back-to-back weeks there this season. And then Monday Night Football, they host Kansas City. That's kind of a storyline game for me, because Jacksonville hasn't got those primetime games, even with Trevor Lawrence. They have not been in primetime much at all. And that's a huge spot. If they were to beat Kansas City at home week 5, like, it could really propel them forward in this season, especially with Liam Cohen and a first-year head coach and a first-year GM. And then with Travis Hunter, the big pick. 9-8, it'll be right there on the borderline. We'll see if that puts them in the postseason. But is there a moment in this season for y'all that, like, you think is kind of a potential turning point for this team? For me, like I said, it's week 5 against Kansas City. Monday Night Football. But what would it be for y'all? It can be the same thing.
I mean, that is a huge game. I think it's more for me is they can't go dropping games to the like weaker teams on their schedule, in my opinion, because I'm not really. I don't really trust them to beat the big boys at all. So if they do want to have the season where they're around 500, I need them to win at home against Tennessee and beat like the New York Jets if people don't think they're going to be very good and stuff like that. Because I just don't see them consistently like showing up against Kansas City and going toe to toe against Kansas City and stuff like that.
I would say that weeks 10 and 11 could be really, really important because if you can come out of that bye, I'm not high on Las Vegas, so I've got them winning that game. I have them losing the next two at Houston and Los Angeles. But if you win those two, or at one of those two, now you're set up for a really good back half of the season. You've got Arizona, you've got Tennessee twice, Indianapolis twice, the Jets, and then the Broncos. So that's a pretty easy back half of the schedule. So the Jaguars could start 0-5 and then still finish with 7 losses and then make a wild card or potentially win the division. I mean, they could go 10-7, potentially win the division. So if you can win one or both of those games in weeks 10 and 11, fresh off a bye, or the week before, that could be really important for them setting up the back half of the schedule.
It's interesting. So you talk about being really important, and you have them losing both.
Yes.
But then also still, like, I don't know, performing well. Like, obviously it can happen. It just is like a weird paradox because also
I do think that the Cardinals and the Titans and the Colts and the Jets are a lot worse than the Texans and the
obviously. It's just, I don't know. It's looking at your schedule, too. It's a thing of, like, I don't know if I trust this team with who they have to go. I mean, I know it's a new head coach and stuff, but I don't know. To start 0-5 and kind of pull themselves out of that fire and right the ship, I wonder what kind of questions will start getting asked about Trevor Lawrence.
Agreed.
Yeah. If everyone will just have already jumped ship on him. Teams have done it before, but I just don't know if I really like this group to be one of the teams that I feel like you kind of get almost one every year that starts slow. But I mean, 0-5 is brutal.
Yeah, it becomes really imperative to win that first game of the season. It feels like because of that, winning that first week carries on way more weight than almost it feels like winning any week the rest of the regular season, because that's like the first impression everyone gets. And if you win week 1, then everyone's like, oh, well, this team might go undefeated and win the Super Bowl. Like, that's in the cards. Winning week 1 is huge because those next 4 weeks are.
You heard it here first. You cannot go undefeated without winning the first week.
This is true. I do think they've got 2 wins guaranteed on the schedule.
Not contenders for 0-17, Jaguars fans.
Yeah, they are a lock to go at worst 2-15, because they host the Colts this season, and they also play the 0-17 candidates, the Carolina Panthers. So I think those are 2 huge things going for them this season.
Sure.
But 9-8, I think it's to cap it off. It's going to be a season of watching Travis Hunter. That's going to be awesome, because who doesn't want to watch Travis Hunter play football? And then does Trevor Lawrence have a good season? And more importantly, is he healthy enough? Which I think that brings their offensive line to the question, which is not great, but we didn't really touch on it. But that kind of closes out the Jaguars, having them finish at 9-8.
Can I give a fantasy sleeper for this team real quick?
Yeah.
Can I guess?
Yeah.
Is he a rookie?
No.
Well, that made it. Oh, is it the guy from Washington, De'Ami Brown?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think he finished the season pretty strong last year in Washington, and is just another like solid weapon. I mean, nothing special, but if you're in a 16-team league or something, a guy that can make a couple catches. He caught most of his targets last year and stuff like that. So
yeah,
he's going to make the most of his opportunity.
And I would still take the upside on Trevor Lawrence as far as
correct.
Do you expect him to be better or worse next year? Like I expect Trevor Lawrence to be a good quarterback next year and going forward. Like I still think his best years and best seasons are ahead of him.
Well, we know Liam Cohen loves to yeet the ball. He's going to air it out, so that's going to help too.
If you can buy low on a consistent wide receiver to kind of help out Trevor Lawrence and provide a little bit more. He's got to be at least probably
3rd, 4th year in the league, something like that.
Okay, I was going to say a little bit
Because
later.
he
was
was
a free agent, right?
he was at UNC. Maybe he finished his fourth year. He was at UNC when Sam Howell was there. Like, I think they maybe got drafted same year.
So Howell was drafted in 21. So 1, 2, 3, 4.
Finished his fourth year.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that is a really good pick because if you can get a consistent guy to kind of, if you can buy low while Trevor Lawrence is still not bad but not great yet, then that's awesome. Especially like a keeper league, but I don't know. Trevor Lawrence in a keeper league could be nasty. Stash him.
Travis Etienne's going to be good this year.
Really?
You heard it here first.
Foot injuries are too scary.
I've got Tank Bigsby in my keeper league. I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep him. He may be a cut candidate because we got to cut some people.
If you're keeping Tank Bigsby, that could be a problem.
It's also a really.
I'm going to question if you know ball.
Yeah.
It's a really weird league.
How was your draft? Because you clearly don't have any talent.
No, I have a lot of talent. I actually have a fan. It is a 6-team league, not a 16-team league.
Then if Tank Bigsby is
no, the rosters are huge. We start.
Even still, I don't care if you're keeping 25 guys. He's kind of borderline in the 20 to 25.
He put up some good weeks. Whenever Etienne got hurt, Bigsby would put up good weeks, and so I'm holding on to him. I was holding on to him in the hopes that he would just take the spot because he was playing better than Etienne.
I think that maybe will be Tank Bigsby's best season in NFL.